Hey everyone, this is Amy at Pretty Presets, and I am going to answer some of your questions today that we saw up on the group page under Manic Monday. Hopefully I'll be able to get those questions answered for you, and we will all learn something new today. I know that I have been looking at some of these questions, so let's get started. And these aren't in any particular order. I just wrote them down and kind of went through. So, okay. This first question is, and I think if I understood it correctly, anyways, that this is what it was about. Getting the RAW file and the JPEG file showing up side by side in the in Lightroom. What you'll want to do is go into your Lightroom, and you'll go up to the very top where it says File, Edit, Develop. You'll click on Edit, and then you'll click on Preferences, which is down towards the bottom, and then you'll click on General. It's automatically set to presets when you go into there, so just to the right, it's the very first tab. Click on General, and then go down and click on the box that says Treat JPEG Files next to RAW files. You'll click on that, and then you'll be able to edit your JPEG files next to your RAW files. I believe that is the right answer. So we're going to go with that for now. If I find out that I'm wrong, I will let you all know. I don't shoot JPEG. There was a time where I was able to do that, and I had my JPEGs next to my RAW, because when I first started shooting in RAW, I wanted to be able to see what the difference was side by side. And so that's what I did. I was able to compare them and see the difference, because there is a big difference. So I liked being able to compare those two, but I also learned that there was no need in holding on to both of them, because RAW takes up enough space as it is, and so I didn't feel that I really needed to shoot in JPEG and RAW. So I hope that answers your question. Like I said, if I find out that I'm not right, then I will let you know, but I'm pretty sure that is right. Next question, how do you use the clarity brush? I use the clarity brush for a few different things. I will use that brush when I am editing the face. I will use it on eyebrows and eyelashes. And I just I go right over the eyebrows and the eyelashes, and then I usually bump it just a tiny little bit from what the Pretty Preset brush is already set at. It's a little bit lower than what I like it to be sometimes, so I'll just kind of bump it up a little bit, especially with those girls that I'm coming down off of senior season right now, and so a lot of these girls, they've got their mascara on and their makeup, and so I just really like their eyes to stand out more. And I have found that for me, one way to do that is by showcasing their eyebrows and their eyelashes a little bit more. So I'll use the clarity brush for that. There's also a location that I shoot at a lot that has some really great older trucks that have some great texture on them. One of them is like a turquoise kind of color, and then it's got like some old rust spots coming through. It's great. And so sometimes I'll take the clarity brush and I will just go over that truck, and it just really makes it pop. And I like that. So I think that on sessions that I do that are more of an urban feel, that's when I find that I use the clarity brush even more, are those ones with an urban feel. So I'm trying to think of other times that I may use the clarity brush. Oh, I just used it another time. In this last week, I took some pictures of my daughter, and she has the cutest freckles that are on her nose, and then some that are right in here. And I did an edit with her that I loved that was in black and white, but it took away from her freckles, and I didn't want that. So I went in with the clarity brush, and I just went over this area right here to bring those freckles back out. So those freckles will, or that clarity brush will kind of preserve the detail that you want. So hope that answers your question. Okay, next question. How do you layer presets? You'll find that layering presets with pretty presets specifically, it's very easy to do. You just have to make sure that when you're importing your presets, that you import them by the group that they were sold in. I made the mistake with the complete bundle that I did not install them correctly, and so they were all over the place when I first started using them, and it was a mess trying to use. I didn't know which presets were in which collection. I didn't know what went together. It was a mess. And when I got my new computer, I then installed them the correct way, and that made a huge difference. So what you need to make sure that you do first is install your presets correctly and that you have your folder labeled. So this question is actually killing two birds with one stone, because there was another question that this is answering. So when you import your presets, label them correctly. Don't just label them pretty presets. You can't do that. You need to label them by the group that they are in. So like Make It Matte, when you are making that new folder for that group of presets that you're importing, label it Make It Matte or Clean and Creative. Label it what it is, so that when those presets come in to the folder, they will then be grouped together. So that's what you really need to do. So that way, then when you want to go and layer the presets, you'll see that they will be labeled, like you'll have a series of presets that will say A, and then there will be a dash, and there will be like 5 or 6 different ones that have an A next to them. And then you go down, and then there's a whole nother set that have a B next to them, and then a C, and then a D, and then an E. What you can do, my favorite collection to do this with really is the black and white collection. It's my favorite to layer onto each other. You can choose one from A, one from B, C, D, and E. So that's how you layer. You're just going to go in and you're going to choose the look that you want, and you can choose based off of one in each group. It's fantastic. There are a few different collections that offer that. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but not Make It Matte, but the black and white collection has that. And it's like I said, I cannot say enough good things about how Pretty Presets is set up when it comes to layering the presets. Because you just have to choose one from each group. So you can't choose more than one from each group, but you can skip one from a group. So sometimes in the black and white collection, I'll choose A and I'll skip B altogether, and then I'll go on to C. So you can skip one, but you cannot do more than one per group, okay? So that is how you layer presets. I have to get a drink now. I went to Arby's for lunch today, Dr. Pepper. It's my favorite. Clients that love me bring it to me when they know I've had a long day. So, okay, so that's how we layer presets. And then it looks like the same person also asked in their question how to use the brushes. The brushes, really, it just depends on what you're going to use it for. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about what you can do with the brushes. You can do anything with the brushes. You can, make faces look beautiful. You can soften skin with the brushes. You can increase exposure with the brushes. You can, add clarity, add contrast, add color. You can, you can do anything with the brushes. My favorite set of the brushes is the the Perfect Portrait brushes, just because there is so much that you can do with them. The Color Lux set comes with brushes as well. I've used those on occasion, but my favorite really is the portrait brushes, because there's so many different things that you can do with them. The Color Lux is really good as well, because they have some brushes in there that help you get rid of color cast. And I've used the orange color cast brush recently, and it's fabulous. You use it, and then you can use your sliders to adjust the strength of the brush. So you just go over to your brush and you click on the one that you want, and then you go ahead and you apply that to the area that you want to use it in, and you decide if it's strong enough for you or not. You use your sliders to change it. I know that we have some tutorials up on the blog that can help you if you want to see a visual of how to use the brushes. So that's always an option if you're more of a visual learner on using the brushes. And if you don't find something there on the blog and you're like, I would really love to see, something different with the brushes, then on Wednesday, we've got the Workflow Wednesday post that will be coming. So make sure to comment on that, or post a picture that you would like to see us really utilize those brushes. That's always another option for you. Okay, best tools for photos taken in a dark room. I think that if you have a photo that's taken in a dark room, you're going to want to, I would probably use a slider to increase the exposure, just because that'd be the easiest thing to do right off the bat. It would take more time to use a brush to go over the whole thing and change the exposure. So I would just use the slider to increase the exposure, and then go in and use the brushes, or use one of the workflow presets to go in and start making those adjustments. You've got the workflow presets that can help go in and do some of that fine tuning that you need if you have just totally missed the exposure when you're in a dark room like that. For me personally, I have such a hard time doing photos inside the house unless it's like early enough in a day. And I live in a house where there are windows everywhere. Like if you look at my house right now, like I've got, let's see, a curtain right there, a curtain right here. I've got windows everywhere. But it's still, I have to increase my ISO, and you just, it's harder. It's just harder to get those great photos inside the house. Using natural light is easier for me, and so that's what I tend to do. But if you're taking those pictures inside the house and you're getting very dark images, increase your exposure, and then it's just really going to depend on what exactly your photo looks like. It's going to depend on how well your camera handles grain, and what specifically where your light source was, how much of the light actually came in. So, a lot of times it's easy, and I think we kind of expect that there's going to be this one magic answer for everything, and that's not always the case. So we just have to learn those tools as we go along, and what works and what doesn't. And so I think this is one of those questions where, you just have to go in and experiment, increase that exposure, because then that lets you see what you're working with. When you can't really see what you're working with, it makes it a little bit harder. So at least if you increase the exposure, then, if you're dealing with, some, color cast issues, that you're going to have to, deal with the grain issues, and you're going to have to, take care of a lot of different things. So let's move on to another question. How do you get skin tones correct? This question is going to be twofold. The first part of this answer is getting it right in camera. That is the most important thing that you can do. Okay, you guys are going to have to excuse me for a second because my dog is next to me and he wants to go outside, so I need to call somebody to let him out because otherwise he's going to start barking. Hun? Yeah? Clark needs to go out. Okay, so the most important thing that you can learn in photography, and it should be like the number one thing you learn. If you do not know it right now, learn it, study it, let it be what you go to bed tonight reading. You need to know your exposure triangle. You need to understand how your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed all go together. Because by knowing that, you will have a better understanding of having correct skin color in camera. You will understand how everything comes together and then how it will all look right. The first time I shot in manual, I thought, I've got this covered. I totally know what I'm doing. I took my family out for a photo session and I got some really great shots of them. And then I came home and I looked at them and they're all orange. Like all my people are orange. And no matter what I did to edit them, they are still orange. There's still a part of them that's orange. It's like, it's just not good. And I use that as an example when I'm mentoring people, that you have to learn that. You have to learn that exposure triangle. You have to learn how to use light, because that's how you're going to get good skin and color in camera. I can't say that enough. So learn how to do that in camera. The next part is, well, what if you don't get it right in camera? Then what are you going to do? Then you're going to use some of the amazing or some of the workflow presets that there are. And I think that those are great to have when you are struggling with color cast, because there are, and I don't have, let me see, I have my Lightroom open here, so I'm going to go in and look for a couple things. Okay, the clean edit workflow here, it does a really good job of including different presets that will help with when you haven't gotten good skin color. There is one of the ones that I love the most out of all the pretty presets that there are is the fix reds a little, and the fix reds a lot, and the fix yellows. Those three right there are lifesavers when it comes to editing. I think those three are great. And then I also go down and I love to use the brighten center. I think that that is great when you are editing photos and your skin color is off, and I'm going to explain why I like that particular one. And then what is the other one that I love to use for skin color? I think those are my go-to ones in this set. So when my skin colors are off, I wait to totally fix all of that until I've done my work with my presets. When I'm done doing that and the skin color is still off, what I will do is go over to the oranges, just because I've just noticed that it almost always tends to be because of orange. If it's not, then this will work with any other color as well. So like say you've got a green cast or a yellow cast that you're dealing with. What I do is I go over to that color and I take the saturation, so let's say it's orange. I take the orange saturation, I move it a little bit over to the left, and then the luminance a little bit over to the right. That tends to just create a perfect balance so that your skin color evens out a little bit. Now, when it comes to, let's say you've got like, you're out of the grass and you've got like green color cast right here. For those kinds of color casts, I refer to the brushes. and try to reduce it with the brushes. This is where those brushes with the Color Lux set comes in really handy, because there are several brushes in that set that deal with color cast. And so that's a great set to have just for the brushes alone that come with it. So so that's how I make sure to get good skin tones. And you know, it's something that I think is really, really important. It's something that I try to make sure as a photographer that I work on myself. And a lot of times when I'm giving feedback to people in the group, it's something that I try to comment a lot on is, oh, you did a great job. The skin tone looks perfect, because that is really, really important. You don't want people hanging up pictures where they look orange or where they look red, or, you know, whatever. You want to give them pictures where their skin tone looks really, really good. So that has to be something that you work on and you become consistent in. I need another drink. Okay, next question. What's the most efficient way to smooth skin, cellulite, wrinkles? The skin smoothing brush is awesome. The great thing about Pretty Presets, the portrait brushes, I can't remember if it's Smooth Skin or Skin Smooth, but it's one of those. When you use that particular brush, it is already set at just the right amount to go over somebody's face. So if you are going to use that brush, it usually does not need to be changed. A lot of times people want to like take it all the way down, and then you end up with people that have like plastic skins. Just don't do that. And if you go and move it too far to the right, then you are going to end up with a skin that is just, it's just too much. There's too much clarity there. So you don't want to do that. Generally when I'm editing faces, when I use that skin smoothing brush, I leave it set as it is. Now, if you're dealing with, let's say, cellulite, and you know somebody's got just like a lot of cellulite on their legs or something, and you're trying to get that out, that would be a time where you would want to take that slider with that particular brush and go all the way down and do it. And then if it's still not out, then you would go back up, you would click new, and you would just keep that brush open, and then you would just apply it again. You can apply the same brush over and over again when you need to. You know, there aren't too many times that you need to do something like that, you know, with the skin smoothing brush, but that's one way to take care of smoothing out skin like that. I believe there is a wrinkle brush with the, I'm still open here, so I'm going to go in and look. I believe that there is also a wrinkle brush for the skin. Let me see. Yep, there is. There's a skin under eye circles, which I love using, and there is a skin wrinkle reducer. So those are great brushes to use to help with the lines and the bags and stuff under people's eyes. So, and I'll take my glasses off and show you what I do. When I use the under eye brush, instead of just leaving it right here, I usually go under here and then I go up into right here as well, because then it blends it in really nice, so that instead of just going right here and then it's stopping and being kind of this, not so much a harsh edit, but you want it to blend in really well. So I do that. So if I'm noticing that that person needs that, I usually do the skin smoothing first, and then I do the under eye brush and go up just a little bit like that. So that's how I do that. Let's see. I think we have just a couple more. Okay, there was a post about virtual copies. When you are wanting to do virtual copies, what you do is you go into Lightroom, and say you want to do a virtual copy of every single picture that you've done, and you want to offer your client a black and white image of all of those pictures. So what you do is you would select all. So say you've done like all your color edits. Then you go in and you select all for all of them. And then you create a virtual copy of them. And then you would do your black and white copy or your black and white edits on all of them. And then you've got your color and your black and white edit. And then you're done. And then you would just save all of them and you would export them all. So it's that easy. I hope that I answered that correct. Well, I hope that that was the question that was being asked. That was one that I needed some clarification on. So hopefully you got what you needed there. Okay. We added that. There's a couple of these questions that I'm not answering that I think I want to do a video on because I think they would be better to do a video on to show you exactly what to do, like adding text to a photo and converting a photo to black and white when you've used a sun flare. Those ones I want to do a video on where you can actually see the editing process rather than explaining it. So I'm not going to answer those two right now. Let me just look at my notes and make sure that I have got everything done. I believe I do. There was one other question that I said I was going to answer, and I was all excited because I thought, oh, this is an easy one to answer. Okay, somebody posted earlier, and they wanted to know what they were doing wrong in their export settings. And I was like, oh, I totally know this one. I'm not going to have to look anything up for this one. So I am going to tell you now. There were a couple settings that you had that were just wrong in the sense that I'm not too sure why you had those settings the way that you did. So I'm going to tell you now. In the box that says image sizing, your resolution numbers were really, really high. If you are exporting for print, they need to be at 300. So say these are pictures that you're going to be exporting and you're going to put on a CD. Then your resolution should be 300. Say these are pictures that you are exporting and you're going to be posting on your blog or on Facebook. Then you only need to have a resolution of 72. So that's it. You just, the resolution, 72 or 300. You can do something a little bit higher than 72 if you want to, but you don't need to. So 72 or 300 are the two main numbers that you have to remember when it comes to resolution. And then you had your output sharpening was high. It was set for high. And then I think, I don't remember what the other drop down was, whether it was set for screen, matte paper, or glossy paper. If you sharpened your image while editing, then you want to leave your output sharpening box unchecked. If you didn't do any sharpening and you want Lightroom to add some sharpening for you, then go ahead and check that box. I personally sharpen when I am editing, so I always leave that box unchecked because I don't want Lightroom doing my sharpening for me. I want to do it myself. And this is going to be, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm looking like all over the place right now because I'm looking in Lightroom and I'm trying to find something. There was one last question right before I got on, and it had to do with the difference between clarity and sharpening. Like, what's the difference between clarity and sharpening? And so I'm looking at a picture right now, and trying to see like if I could explain it to you and what the difference is. Sharpening, it just adds, it makes the photo like a little bit sharper. Clarity, on the other hand, does a whole lot more than your sharpening. Let me get back. Okay, so, you know, I just kind of like moved him over a little bit. You know, you can, you know, check it out when you're in Lightroom. It's just, you know, play with those sliders. So this kind of wraps up these questions for this week. The best thing that you can do when it comes to learning Lightroom and learning about the presets and what works for you and your workflow and your photos is to practice and to play with them and to learn what you like. You know, I can't encourage you to do that enough. So now I've got 2 teenage boys coming into the house that are going to make noise. Oh, they picked up on that cue. So the best thing that I can encourage you to do is to, you know, play around with things, play around with the sliders, and, you know, see what they do, see what the differences are. Do you like photos that have a little bit more contrast or that have less contrast? I personally like photos that have a little bit more contrast. Do you like photos that have a lot of light or less light? Do you like vignettes or do you not like vignettes? I don't like vignettes, so I hardly ever I never will consciously put a vignette on something, but there are sometimes presets that come with a vignette, and a lot of times I just go in and reduce that vignette. But some photographers love vignettes. So learn what you love and do what you love. Until next week.